I've tested a lot of bikes on this channel over the years, so many in fact that one of my complaints is that I hardly ever have time to ride my own motorcycles. It's not a bad problem to have, testing out the latest and greatest motorcycles from various manufacturers, but it does mean that this Tenere 700 that I bought 3.5 years ago has not been getting the love it deserves, and that I've only put 11,000 kilometers on it in all that time. The Canadian riding season is limited due to our lengthy winters, and when it comes, the press fleets arrive and I get to work. But this year, I've decided to show the old T7 some more attention, spruce it up, improve its off-road performance, and spend more time with it. It has certainly been a bike that has been hyped up and has had plenty of videos made about it on YouTube. But as a regular guy with some skills but nothing out of this world who has ridden a million motorcycles over the years, I have to ask, is this bike worth the hype, or has the competition caught up and surpassed it? For the answer to that question, stay tuned. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, please consider supporting this small channel by subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. First, no motorcycle stays stock for very long, so let's take a look at how I've customized this Tenere 700. First with Yamaha Accessories.
Alright, so here's the bike with all of its accessories and all its glory, nice and dirty like an adventure bike should be. Here we go. I didn't clean it because it's an adventure bike, who cares? Okay, front to back Yamaha headlight protector. This is actually marked for off-road use only, but you know what? I just put it on because these headlights are very expensive to replace. I think they're a couple of $1,000, so I just run it on the road. I don't care. It doesn't dim the headlight in any way. It looks fine, and it protects that expensive headlight. Yamaha brand radiator guard. Again, I think this aluminum right here, and it keeps the rocks and things like that from flying up and puncturing the rad. Good idea when you're off-road as often as I am. Various companies make engine guards for the T7. This is the Yamaha brand one. These come around here, protect the plastic on this side, come down underneath, join up here, and protect the plastic on this side. And I've dropped this bike quite a few times, and this plastic would be gone many times already if I didn't have these guys. In fact, you can see this one's a lot closer to the plastic than this one because I dropped it on that side, and it probably bent a little bit. So definitely worth having. Another thing worth having is the center stand. This is the Yamaha one. It didn't come on the bike. I had to get it separately and put it on. Obviously, it's awesome for cleaning the chain and other maintenance. However, it was a bear to put on, especially this spring here. There are two springs, as you can see, and you got to stretch them out and hook them onto that thing. And they are almost impossible to put. Like it's very hard to put this on yourself. It's a two-person job, but I did do it by myself. But it was a pain in the butt. Yamaha brand aluminum panniers. Now these are great. They're big and they're sturdy. However, the problem with these is they don't actually come with the lock. If I've got one main complaint about this bike is they don't put the locks on these. So they sell some locks, but those don't necessarily work that well. They're actually supposed to lock this latch here, but also lock the bag from coming off this mounting hardware here. So they're really hard to make work on here, especially since they don't sell the lock with them. I had to put this lock on. It locks the bag, but it doesn't lock the mounting hardware. So someone could just come along and take this bag off. And the ones that they sell, it's hard to make them fit. So the fact that Yamaha does not put locks on the bags is probably my biggest issue with the bike. Honestly, it's ridiculous. How can you sell bags without locks on them? The bags are actually pretty big. This one's a little bit smaller, you can see. They cut it out to make room for the exhaust. And on this side, it's a little bit larger. They carry a lot. Here's the mounting hardware for the bags. It's not very attractive. However, it does come with these handy grab rails for the passenger. So that's nice. And the best thing about this mounting hardware is it's actually pretty sturdy. It comes around through the back here, and you can see it protects the exhaust. And the problem with the T7 that a lot of people have been talking about is that this exhaust hanger is attached to the frame, and the frame is all one piece, as you can see. So if you break this exhaust hanger, you are replacing the whole frame. So essentially, if you drop this bike on the right side and it snaps the exhaust and the exhaust hanger, you're replacing the whole frame on the bike. So a lot of people have tried to tuck the exhaust in underneath there, but this, in my case, I just put this hardware on, and it actually stops the exhaust from hitting the ground when the bike drops on the right side. We have the muddy aluminum Yamaha brand chain guard here. The stock bike comes with a plastic one, and honestly, if I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't get this. I bought this because I thought, well, this will protect the chain, but it really makes no difference. The stock plastic one is probably just as good. So save your money on this one. You don't really need it. On the other hand, I do have the chain guide here, and that protects the rear sprocket from getting all kinds of crud caught into the sprocket and throwing the chain off. So that is, if you're going to go off-road a lot with sticks flying everywhere, that is definitely necessary.
And I've also put on some non-Yamaha stuff.
The Bark Busters are, of course, not Yamaha brand. These are actual Bark Busters brand lever and hand protectors. And so these are the real Bark Busters. You can see they're pretty scuffed up. You can replace the plastic covers on them. So if you drop the bike and break the plastic cover or even scuff it up, you can replace it. I just put a new one on, and it's a lot cheaper than replacing the whole Bark Buster, obviously, because this aluminum part is the most expensive part. And they do a great job of protecting your levers, and also these huge covers do a great job of shielding your hands, especially here in the Canadian winter. So between these and my heated grips, my hands stay nice and warm. And speaking of heated grips, I've got Oxfords, 5-way adjustable, very, very warm, very nice. The grips are comfortable and work very well. The only thing is, this thing doesn't look super integrated. This thing sticks out like a sore thumb, but still it's worth it. And I'm running double take mirrors. They are great as well, very large with a good field of vision. You can fold them in when you're off-road, and you can adjust them in any direction you want. So these are awesome. They don't vibrate either when the bike is going at speed. And finally, the exhaust. This is a slip-on MIV titanium finish. It's pretty dirty right now, but it comes with the carbon cap on the back. It comes with the titanium finish on the pipe. You can also get a carbon finish if you like. I thought the titanium looked a little bit better with the white bike, so I got the titanium. And it does sound good. It's not too loud. It comes with a removable baffle. I found when you remove the baffle, it is too loud. And then when I put it in, it was just a little too quiet for me, so I actually took it out, cut a little bit of it, and put it back in, and it's just a little bit louder. So we'll do a sound check here.
Let's talk about the engine, because this CP2 Yamaha motor is one of the strengths of the bike. The T7 shares this engine with the MT-07, Tracer 700 and R7 sport bike, and you'd think since it's a motor from pavement-oriented machines, it wouldn't much suit an adventure bike as well. But if you thought that, you'd be wrong. Yes, the T7 is quick enough on pavement, has good acceleration, and can cruise the highway all day long. The official figure from Yamaha is 72 horsepower and 49 pound-feet of torque, but the MIV slip-on is supposed to add 2 horses and 1 pound-foot. It's not going to rival larger quote-unquote middleweight bikes like the Ducati Desert X, Triumph Tiger 900 or KTM 890 Adventure R, but it's a lot less expensive than those bikes too. The 679cc parallel twin has a 270-degree crankshaft for that 90-degree V-twin sound. The gearing on the T7 feels relatively low, which is why this bike does not only rock on the pavement but also off-road. The power is extremely linear and there's plenty of torque right down to the bottom of the rev range. Just the other day, I got distracted while stopping at a light, pulled away, and then realized I was in 4th gear. This engine is hard to bog down and chugs through relatively rough terrain almost like a single. People want to put electronic nannies on all the motorcycles these days, but the Tenere 700 is so easy and predictable to ride, it doesn't really need them. So the only electronic assistance available on the T7 is ABS.
So this is the original version of the bike, and it has the original LCD display. It doesn't have the nice color one that they have now, and the only really electronic that you have on this bike is turning off the ABS with this button. You hold the button, it turns it into off-road mode, and it turns the entire ABS off. The new model actually has a 3-position button, and you can turn off the ABS completely, or you can just turn it off on the rear wheel and keep the front wheel ABS on. This one doesn't have it. We've got Brembo brakes. They are axial though, they're not radial brakes. They're axial brakes with a sort of regular axial master cylinder. They work fine for adventure bikes. Radial brakes are a little bit overdone. I mean, I know some of those adventure bikes have 175 horsepower. This one doesn't. And I don't think that the difference between radial and axial brakes is that huge on the road. If you're on the track, racing a motorcycle, racing a sport bike or something like that, I can see the need for radial brakes. But on the road, axial brakes work just fine. The ABS works just fine on them. Everything's good. These brakes, they're not the most powerful brakes around, but also when you're off-road, you don't want them to be too powerful. You want them to be a little bit spongy just so you're not washing out the front end off-road.
The suspension is decent with plenty of adjustment.
The forks are nice. I think they have 8.6 inches of travel, and they have compression and rebound damping, but no preload adjustment. A lot of people complain that the suspension is soft on this bike. I haven't found that. I weigh 180 pounds, so I don't maybe weigh that much. Maybe bigger guys might find the bike bottoming out on them, but I really have no complaints about the forks.
And ground clearance is impressive at 9.4 inches. The wheels are a proper 21 and 18-inch combo, providing plenty of off-road tire choices.
You might have noticed that this is not the stock tire on this bike. When I got this bike, it came with the Pirelli Scorpions, and these are the Michelin Anarchy Wilds, and they are quite a bit more aggressive than the Pirelli Scorpions that came on the bike. So the stock tires on this bike handled very well on the road, but were definitely a little outmatched in the deeper sand, especially when you got into the deep sand, the mud, and going up hills, up very steep hills, you tended to sort of not get the traction that you needed. So I just replaced these, got much more aggressive tires. Now that means that I probably won't be riding this thing as aggressively on the road. I don't want to be trying to drag a knee with these kind of tires. They're not really suited for aggressive road riding, but you can still go pretty well on them, and they give you a lot more traction off-road. So I'm happy with them so far. We're going to do a serious off-road test in a couple of weeks, and I'll get back to you on how these tires perform.
Be aware that these more dirt-oriented tires do cause more noise when rolling on pavement. So what about the riding position, comfort, and wind protection?
All right, so now the riding position on this bike is going to interest a lot of riders. A lot of these bikes have very tall seats, and I am 6 feet tall, 182 centimeters. My inseam is 33 inches. When I get on, this is what I look like. I can actually put my feet flat on the ground right now. However, if you jack up the preload all the way, it does feel kind of a little bit taller. It feels a little bit shorter when the bike is loaded down. And this bike also has a bunch of fairly heavy accessories like these engine guards and stuff like that. So that's probably causing the suspension to sag a little bit. But this is my seating position on the bike. And it's not too tall for me, but if you're significantly shorter in the inseam, then you might have a little bit of an issue here. Yamaha offers two options for this bike, and I'll put in the footage in here, but they offer a slightly shaved seat, and that I think reduces the seat height by something like 0.8 of an inch. I forget exactly what it is, but they do have a lower seat, and they offer factory lowering in the linkage. So not many companies offer that. Yamaha is one of the ones that does, so that makes this bike accessible to a whole bunch more riders. I know in Europe they have several versions of this bike, and one of them, the touring one, I think is actually a bit shorter. So when you're riding this bike, what is the position like? Well, first of all, this bike is very different from bikes like the Transalp. The Transalp is more of a touring, sort of pavement-oriented motorcycle. The seat's lower, the fairing is higher, you sit more in it. This bike you sit more on top of, just like a dirt bike. And some people will like that, some people won't. I really like it. I like the dirt riding position. And so if I put this down and put this bike on the center stand, you'll be able to see the riding position on it. There we go. The riding position on this thing is very roomy. Now, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm not a small guy either. And so I've got the ability to shift forward when I'm riding aggressively off-road. If I want to relax a little bit more, I'm a little bit more further back. And I find the standing position on this bike to be excellent. The bars are tall enough. This is one of the few bikes that stock has tall enough bars for me to stand on. It's very comfortable to stand on this bike. It does feel like a gigantic dirt bike. So if that's what you're looking for in an adventure motorcycle, I think that this is the one for you. The other ones, I mean, I think maybe the Aprilia Touareg 660 is very similar to this, but the Transalp is definitely more road oriented, more of a sport tourer.
And the tank holds 16 liters or 4.2 gallons. This is the least of any other bike in this category, and personally, I don't find the range to be great. I get maybe 230 to 250 kilometers, 150 miles or less before the low fuel light comes on. My bike has the aluminum bags and engine guards, which increase the weight and drag and reduce fuel economy, but it wasn't really much better before I put this stuff on. Speaking of putting stuff on, the weight of the T7 in the showroom is 452 pounds wet, which is lighter than most of the competition, but once you add the bark busters, engine guards, mounting hardware for the bags, center stand, and all the other goodies I have on there, I'm sure we're in the 480 to 490 pound range. Additionally, even though the tank is small, it sits up high, and with the bike being tall already, the fuel up top makes the whole rig pretty top heavy. I can tell you from experience, once the thing is tipping, it is very difficult to stop. Finally, looks. This is a subjective field and I'm biased, but to my eyes, this is the best looking ADV bike on the market. It looks like a mean Dakar racer in a field of weird and rather ugly bikes. The competition either looks like demented bugs or like it got its head stuck in a garbage bin. And the new R1300 GS, despite probably being a very good motorcycle, is not receiving positive feedback on its rather generic looks and ugly headlight. So what is the T7 like to ride? On pavement, it is surprisingly sporty. The power isn't overwhelming, but there's enough of it to keep you entertained. The bike corners well and transitions from side to side quickly without the vague feel that thinner 21-inch front wheels usually cause in corners. The suspension performs well and does not have the excessive dive under braking characteristic of a lot of longer travel adventure bikes. However, the suspension does a great job of soaking up bumps and potholes on rough roads if you set it up properly. I'm no suspension wizard, but there are plenty of informative videos made by experts who can advise you on how to set up your T7 suspension for your weight and type of riding you do. I found one such video, used it as a baseline to set up my compression and rebound damping, and then fine-tuned it to my preferences to a setting that works well on and off-road. In the next month, I'll put out a T7 off-road video in which I will share my suspension settings so you can use them as a baseline for your own bike if you want. Speaking of off-road, the T7 does pretty well there as well. It feels like a gigantic dirt bike and performs surprisingly well. The suspension soaks up the bumps and rolls over roots and rocks nicely. I found the ground clearance to be adequate even on single track. On bikes like the Kawasaki KLR 650 or the Honda Transalp 750, I do experience the occasional touchdown of the bash plate or pegs when I'm riding very rough terrain.
Whoa. Oh, thank God it has a bass plate. Oh yeah, right there. Ooh. Yeah, good thing.
But the T7 seems to provide just that little bit of extra clearance to get over obstacles without drama. The power is honestly a bit too much for off-roading, but it is linear enough so that you can keep control of the bike even without the fancy rider modes. If you're a beginner to off-roading, however, you may want to opt for a bike with a softer off-road mode for safety. Also, if you're doing serious dirt riding, I'd advise you to get some protection, like the aforementioned engine guards and pannier mounting brackets to save your bodywork and protect your exhaust. And that will add weight, but I prefer a little extra weight to replacing broken parts on the bike, or worse, replacing your frame. Probably the biggest issue with the Tenere 700 off-road is its weight and top heaviness. The T7 is no dual sport, so if you're primarily riding dirt, get something like the Honda CRF 300L Rally or an even lighter dual sport. The Tenere is not sprightly or fast on the trail, but will get you where you want to go competently and without drama. If you'll spend almost all your time on pavement, then pick a Triumph Tiger 660 or the T7's brother, the Tracer 700 with their smaller wheels and road biased tires. The T7 is definitely the bike for the rider who will do plenty of pavement, but also considerable dirt riding as long as the dirt doesn't get too gnarly. Like I said, in a video to come soon, I'll show you exactly how far you can push this bike off-road before you overwhelm it, so stay tuned to the channel for that one. But what is the T7 missing? If you like high tech, don't get this bike. There are no rider modes, no traction control, no lean sensitive anything, and no cruise control. Yamaha kept this thing simple, which makes for a reliable bike. Has anything ever broken down on it in my 3.5 years of ownership? Nope. Literally nothing has ever gone wrong with this bike, ever. Enough said. Which I guess is a reason to opt for a Japanese motorcycle. I like my bike on the road, not getting fixed in a shop. And if it does ever need fixing, there are plenty of Yamaha dealers around and the service and parts won't be too pricey. Since this bike came out, many other competitors arrived, copying its successful formula of offering a simpler, lighter, and less expensive adventure motorcycle. The Aprilia Touareg 660, the Honda Transalp 750, and the Suzuki V-Strom 800 are the T7's closest competitors, and they all hover between $10,000 and $13,000 US. The Transalp and V-Strom are both geared more toward comfort on the road, while the Touareg is like a Tenere 700 but with a punchier motor and a sophisticated electronics suite. So if I was buying today, would I still choose the Tenere 700 given that the competition has heated up? Yes, I would. I tested the Transalp 750 for a week, check out my video on it in the top right corner, and while I loved the engine and found the bike a little better than the Yamaha on pavement, the Tenere is the superior bike on dirt where I spend quite a bit of my time. The V-Strom 800 is more comfortable and better option than the T7, but is over 50 pounds heavier, so don't expect it to be in the same league off-road. Finally, the Aprilia seems to be better than the Tenere everywhere and comes with better tech for not much more money. So why didn't I trade my T7 for one when it came out? No Aprilia dealers close to where I live for one, and for two, I just don't trust their reliability and ability to get parts quickly and efficiently from Italy. Yell at me all you want in the comments and tell me that your Aprilia has gone 100,000 miles on 3 oil changes and never even hiccuped, I don't care. If you want a bike that will get you home every time, nothing beats a Yamaha. The T7 meets my riding needs and complements my riding style better than any other bike and does not break the bank either. So again, stay tuned for more content on this bike, including some more extreme off-roading and a proper test of these new tires when the trails open in a week. But until then, I'm curious, which adventure bike interests you the most and why? Would you actually take your ADV bike to do some serious off-roading? I know that taking these heavy bikes into the rough stuff is not for the meek, and if you're 99% on pavement, there are better sport touring bikes for the job, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Stay tuned for more T7 videos soon, adventure on, and may the spokes be with you.